Hey folks, welcome to tonight's episode of Slingin Dirt Media. Tonight we're sitting down with the safety director from the Lawrenceburg Speedway, Bobby Gompf. Going to go over a lot of stuff. Tonight's going to be an extremely long video, longer than what we usually do. So we're going to break it up into 3 different sections. So you'll see a part 1, part 2, and part 3 tonight. So stick around, hope you enjoy, and we'll see you at the track this summer, Slingin Dirt.
No, Tyler Scott, he was our second interview. We kind of did a fan thing. Said, hey, I want you fans, you guys decide who we do next,
Sure.
Post a picture who you want, and whoever's picture gets the most likes. And, man, I really thought there was going to be some other local area guys that, are just really popular, your Rices and your Hensleys. And, I just Stricker. I mean, I thought, man, these guys, they're going to be all over this. Their picture wasn't anywhere. I'm like, wow, I was really stunned. But I had two legend guys. Man, these guys both had like over 100-something likes each.
Sounds like the legend fans were kind of monopolizing there a little bit.
The Tri-State Legend Series was in full effect.
Yeah, it sounds like
they wanted their spot there. So we did an interview with Tyler Scott out at Moeller Raceway Park, and we did it in the tower, and it went okay.
Good.
Tyler's not a real talkative person, but I was happy to do it and talk to him because I'm sure he probably doesn't get a whole lot of talk time, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's anything from the late models to sprint cars, modifieds. I mean, I want to get them all in there, So anywhere we can get an extra plug and get let the fans know and the drivers know that, hey, this is what we're here for. We're here for the races, the racers, and connecting the dots between the fans and the drivers, and that's.
Well, as you saw at the, you fortunately you were able enough to make this Lawrenceburg Speedway banquet this year.
Yep.
And as you saw from some of the drivers that were there, some are very talkative and some are not.
Yep.
Mr. Hamilton, Matt Hamilton, was extremely talkative this year. Hope he's watching, and I know his wife Shelby would understand why he was very talkative this year.
Yeah.
And because we were all stunned, because that was more. Matt said more words at that banquet than he said in Victory Lane in the last 12 years.
12 years, yeah. So here's the funny thing about that. I had actually tried to get a hold of Matt. I was trying to record with Matt tonight. I'd also tried to get a hold of David Spilley. Spilley said he couldn't really commit. They were working on their car, and they may be down at Bruce Built, so he just couldn't commit at the time. I'm like, okay, no problem.
So I was third fiddle then. Right? Is that what I'm?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. Just
But
wanted
no,
to check.
This is all good stuff here.
Hey,
This
he's
will
close
work
enough to his mic now, right? Is he doing okay? Okay.
So I had talked. No, I didn't talk to Matt. I tried to talk to Matt. I didn't even get a response from Matt. So I'm like, hey, Shelly, I'm trying to get a hold of Matt. Can you have him give me a call? I'm trying to, she's like, okay. She's like, yeah, I'm trying to see if he wants to.
Well, you know how you have to bribe him, right? I think we know how you got to bribe him.
Liquid courage.
There you go. Yeah, it worked at the banquet.
I would have been happy to have a cooler full. She said they were leaving today. They were going out of town, going side by side.
I believe that. Like, he does a lot of that.
Okay,
yes,
so that's when I got my good friend Bobby. Hey, Bobby, I need some help. I need a recording session Thursday night. Who we got? Like, I'll do it. I'm like, perfect.
No problem. Because I threw you to Corey Skipton. I think Corey was trucking tonight.
Yeah.
He runs his own trucking company.
Yeah. And his car, I don't think his car's quite ready either.
No, I don't think he's ready. I think Casey Burdett.
Casey Burdett, yeah.
Great guy, too. Love Casey. Got to know him from running the Merrill Downey.
I think he's won a race at Moeller as well.
Yeah.
And I've had conversation with Casey at East Bay.
Yeah.
He was down one year helping Scott or something, so I'd had some conversation with him.
So many great people in racing. They're really
man, I'm telling you, it's just like, I mean, just like anything. Yeah, you have your good and your bad, but it's like, man, I have a lot of family. I don't have a lot of local family. My mom's family is often down in southeastern Kentucky, down in Clay County, but I don't have a lot of local family. My dad's got a brother, and I got a couple of cousins that live out in Goshen, Ohio. But just because we're just on opposite ends of the world and people got kids and families, I mean, we just don't really get together as much as we'd like.
Yeah.
But I have my racing family, and I see my racing family every weekend, at one place or another.
Yeah, we had that conversation. I mean, it's people just don't understand. I mean, it's a completely different thing, and until you're in it, you don't understand it.
Yeah.
And I can't imagine ever not being in it. My son, he's
following footsteps.
He's in it. I mean, he was in my truck, in the back of my truck probably at 5. And funny story, we had one night at Lawrenceburg. One of my partners that works with me is the local fire chief here in Greendale, and we had a push truck jump over top of a sprint car tire, I believe, over a right rear sprint car. For the start of a feature, and this was at the Oldberg, and so we were out there with the record trying to get it picked up and get it out of the way. Well, I had an expedition at that time.
I remember
and
the expedition.
We got out of the truck, and somehow on the way out of the truck, I accidentally hit the lock button, and we closed the doors. And the truck, we're trying to start the feature. The truck is in gear, or it's parking brakes on, and we're sitting on the racetrack,
locked out,
can't get in the truck. The lights are on, and luckily, I had to wake up my son to have him wake up from his nap in his car seat to open the door.
Yeah.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
My dog's playing with his
I
squeaky
heard
toy.
the squeaky toy going off over there.
Hey, bet you haven't had that yet, have you?
No, that's it's a first,
I'm surprised she hasn't broke that one. She has this duck that she has, and the squeaker was in the rear of the duck, and somehow she finds a way to get that thing out, stick it back in, and she'll pull it back out. So I eventually just threw it away.
Yeah.
She'll quit in a minute. She'll get bored.
She's good. She's
a good girl.
My girls, when I used to race, and we'd have the quad down in the infield, like at Florence and stuff. And man, when they were younger and they would be tired. My girls now are 16 and 20, but when they were younger and we'd be at the track, they would actually fall asleep on the four-wheeler in the infield. Cars go around the racetrack and they're out. They're like, this is good stuff.
Well, there's been some nights at Lawrenceburg during the modified show that I've almost fallen asleep. Sometimes it seems like we get 500 yellows sometimes, but
I think now it's the sport mods. We sometimes like we get a lot of, at least at Florence. Florence's last year or so, it's man, they've been struggling to get the races in because those guys have been caution after caution after caution.
It seems like on those nights when, we'll maybe have United States Auto Club or the Outlaws, and
there goes the duck,
and the track gets slick, and then we'll bring the modifieds out. Those. I mean, they're running so much horsepower in those cars now on those narrow tires, and it's just hard to keep them under control. It's very difficult to do. Now, when we have the Merrill Downey, it's not too bad because, I mean, we'll start 24 cars, and that's 24 really good cars. And I'm not saying anything about our regulars, but, you got some guys that are still learning, a little inexperienced, and it's a lot easier for them to come around and like you're like, oh my God, not another yellow, another yellow, another yellow. But, you know.
So you mentioned your favorite track. You've done this for a long time. You mentioned your favorite track, Kokomo, home tracks, Lawrenceburg. Is there? I'm not trying to put a place down by any means, but is there a place you particularly don't care for, or is there anything that's too far away?
Well, who all's listening to this tonight?
This is the World Wide Web, man. This is YouTube. This is whoever clicks on YouTube. You know, and I like to look at it as maybe it's constructive criticism. Like,
yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe we didn't facilitate the way we should have, or maybe something should have been done different.
Yeah. I don't think Bloomington is what it used to be. Bloomington, they've had a lot of promotership change there lately, and always used to be a fantastic program. And then they started running the Indiana Race Savers there a lot, and with the wings, it really tended to dry the track out.
Yeah.
To where the USAC races, because for whatever reason they were running that as their second division on sprint week, and the track was just so hard slick by the time the sprint cars, the USAC guys, got out there that it normally kind of junked the race. I do love Bloomington though.
Yeah,
but that
Bloomington was always one of those
kind of
bucket list tracks that I always wanted to go to. I always knew about, you know, playing the video games. It was on there.
Yeah,
I always wanted to go see it, but I haven't made it there yet.
Yeah.
So.
I mean, there's not too many tracks that I don't like. You know, we went to Richmond, Virginia, or Richmond, Kentucky with the Boss show. You know, I remember upon arriving down there were steel poles sticking out of the concrete wall about 2 foot high.
Ooh.
With nothing on the top of them. And I went to Aaron Fry, and you know, me and Aaron both saw him about the same time, and he went to the promoter and told the promoter, listen, we don't cut those poles off, we don't race.
Yeah.
Could just spear a driver in the cockpit so easy. And so the promoter allowed us to cut them out, which was good because we had a guy,
how big
Matt Cooley, flipped over top of it. Well, they were like, if they were going to add guardrail, like fence poles. They were like 2 inches in diameter.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Sticking up about 2 feet above the top of a concrete wall with nothing on the top of them.
Wow.
And like I said, Matt Cooley, he's from up in Ohio. He ended up flipping over turn 2, and he right in the area where one was.
Right.
And I remember we got out there, and he came up, and he about took me to the ground. He gave me a big old hug and a kiss, and he goes, thanks,
I'm so glad you cut those poles off.
Because all those guys knew that we brought that up to them.
Yeah.
But really, there's not too many tracks that I don't like. I mean, as long as they've got racing, I pretty well like them. I mean, I've seen some Bubba's in Ocala. That is probably the weirdest shaped racetrack. The guy had to be drunk when he laid it out. I mean, it is shaped like an egg.
And I don't think Bubba laid it out. We're just going to say that.
Well,
I mean,
Bubba laid it out, then I understand why it looks the way it did.
That explains
You know
it.
Bubba?
I know Bubba.
Holy, wow, what a guy. We had so much fun with that guy.
I hope Bubba gets to see this.
Oh, Bubba, if you're watching, I just did something behind my seat to you. So, no, what a nut. We got to know him so well. Had so much fun. We bought him. One guy on my crew, he called him Big Boy. Ironically, we were on our way to Bloomington for Indiana Sprint Week a couple of years ago, and we stopped in a Frisch's in Greensburg to get something to the drive-thru. And we go through the drive-thru, and they had this Frisch's Big Boy piggy bank thing. And my guy goes, we got to get that for Bubba.
I had one of those when I was a kid.
So
Big Boy piggy bank.
We gave him that, and I tell you what, he absolutely cracked up and loved it. And I said, hey, we even put $2 in there for you since you're probably not going to make any money tonight.
Right, you at least made something.
Cracked up. So Bubba, when he would leave, because he lives down around Tampa, north of Tampa. So, I mean, there's, a 2-hour difference between Ocala and Tampa? About 2 hours?
Yeah, about
hour and 45 minutes?
Yeah,
so
maybe more.
That night that we gave him that thing, he did like these podcasts as he was driving. Well, he had that Big Boy sitting on the dashboard of his truck, and you can see the speedometer. The guy is running like 105, 110 miles an hour down I-75 South to get home.
Was Bubba driving or was Tyler
Bubba
driving?
was driving. I'm not so sure that wasn't one of the... Tyler had a pretty bad crash down there. And I don't remember if that was that year or the year before. But he's driving by himself.
Yeah.
And he was driving, down I-75, and, there'd be like, you have a street light in an intersection, and maybe they were a couple 100 feet apart, and it would be dark, and you wouldn't see that thing. And then he did a street light, and that big boy just like, it was eerie. It would like light up, and then it would go dark, and then it would light up. Well, he is busting butt in his dually down the interstate, and a dually rides rough anyway because he's not pulling a trailer, and that thing falls off, and he's reaching in. Of course, if you know Bubba, he's cussing every word that you can possibly say, and he gets that thing and he sticks it back up on top of there, and he goes about another 5 miles, and it falls off again, and he gets it and he pitches it and he throws it, and you can hear the change jingling around. And we watched that coming home from Florida.
This is while he's doing his podcast.
This is why he's doing this. Yeah, driving 105 miles an hour. And he did it from the minute he left Ocala until he took it in the bathroom. He was in the bathroom of his house, and he still got this thing. And we're wondering when it's going to quit. It was actually, traditionally, when we would go down there with USAC, we would come home the day of the Daytona 500. So we're watching it. I don't know if he did it like on that Friday night or that Saturday night after the final, but we're watching the whole thing driving home, from Ocala, 16, 17-hour drive, I guess. And I tell you what, we were laughing so hard, I thought we were going to pee our pants driving home. It was an absolute
I Bubba's he's no stranger to microphones. I mean, he was on the air here in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah, Bubba the Love Sponge.
Bubba the Love Sponge, yeah. I mean, I don't think I was a teenager. Maybe I was a late teenager, but I remember that it was no Panties Thursday was one of them.
Yeah.
My editing guy, he's like,
he went to Indiana State, not Indiana. He went to Indiana State University. And do you know who his roommate was? Larry Bird's brother.
Really?
Larry Bird's brother. Oh, he's big. He knows Larry. Well, of course, him and Howard Stern are buddies, even though they hated each other when they were on the radio. But
of course,
man, we went out one night and he just told us all this stuff. I mean, you get him on a podcast, you'd have to go about 24 hours.
Really? I would love to have Bubba on. I don't know that I have enough battery for that.
Well, no, you wouldn't, because after you get done editing, it only lasts about 5 minutes. Yeah.
Well, I'm definitely open for that.
He is a character, to say the least.
Yeah, I think the last time I was at Ocala, and I was with the Lucas Oil stuff, and it rained out, but it was weird because it wasn't raining. And I know that sounds funny, but it was doing like this misting weird weather. It was cloudy, and it wasn't raining, but it was just like misting. So Bob was out there on the track, and he's working it, and they're doing everything they can. We already had all banners been up and everything. Rick would send us up Swally from Lucas Oil. We would, like a crew, like on Wednesday of the East Bay week, which would have been like yesterday. The crew would go up on Wednesday to Bubba, put all the Lucas Oil banners up for the week. Then when we're done at East Bay, then we come up and raced at Bubba. So we come up and we're at Bubba, and it's just misting. It's not a rain. It's just this light mist. It's weird. So he's out there on the grader, and he's in his shorts, and he's running the grader, and he said, we'll be qualifying in 30 minutes. Be getting ready. About 20 minutes go by. They're calling it. Rained out.
Oh, gosh.
And it was just so slimy and just so there was
that's a weird track anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, the blacktop surface is not very far down below.
No,
dirt.
It's not. And the fire ants are bad.
Really? We never had to deal with those.
Oh, they're bad. Don't mess with those fire ants.
Really?
So when we were like walking along the catch fence and down in the infield, putting up the banner racks and things like that, you'd see these big mounds. Stay away from those mounds. They're fire ants, and they bite and they hurt.
Never had to deal with that.
One of our guys, he got bit up pretty good on his foot. I don't think he's seen like treatment for anything, but he just watched this. He took a rock, just picked this rock up and just threw it down on his mound, and just like seconds, it was just like whoo! They just swarmed this rock. They're vicious.
Must be some weird stuff in Florida down there like that, because I can remember being at an All-Star show at
Florida.
Jacksonville. And Jacksonville had a rubber tire barrier going down the back stretch. Just took tires and they inlaid them, and then they had some dirt to kind of hold them up, and that was the back wall there. And I can remember in the drivers' meeting, this was back in the Burt Emick day, that ran the All-Stars. And I can remember in the drivers' meeting they brought up, they said, now, if you guys are involved in an accident and you get in those tire barriers back there, do not get out of your car. And everybody's like, well, why would we not get out of our cars?
Yeah.
They're full of snakes. 2 or 3 guys go, well, we're loading up because
Yeah.
I don't like snakes.
Right. Yeah, I'm not a snake guy either.
So it must be some weird stuff in Florida down there.
It's just Florida.
Well, there is some weird stuff
There
in
is
Florida.
a lot of weird stuff.
Yeah,
in
there is a
Florida.
lot of weird stuff.
My wife, she would move. If I called her up and said, hey, just meet me there, she'd be like, cool.
You could not pay me enough money to move to
I do
Florida.
not want to move to Florida. No.
You know, and the other thing is, normally when you go down there to race, you freeze your butt off more down there than what you do when we're up here because, you know, you're in Florida and you tell yourself, well, it should be warm, and
Right.
it's like the coldest I've ever been at a race was at East Bay
Yeah.
for the East Bay Nationals one time. I absolutely, I couldn't believe it. I froze.
Yeah.
I
I knew it's been
froze.
cold down there this year. It's been like iguanas falling
Well,
out
I think
of
it was
trees
nice
cold.
until racers showed up, and
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
because
I've
you
always
watched
said-
Kenny Wallace on his.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
I've
What a
always
guy.
said when you're down there, you could tell between the locals and the out-of-towners. People from up north were down there in shorts and T-shirts.
Yeah.
And man, 60 degrees, 7 degrees feels great. They're freezing down
Everybody
there.
else is freezing.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, we're not going back to Florida anymore. You know, well, at least not for now. A little too much wear and tear on equipment,
Yeah.
and you know, we just don't have enough downtime. We do enough races up here. Typically, we'd go down for the USAC opener for the sprint cars at Bubba's, and you know, 3 nights. You were lucky if you got 2 in, and it was just too far to go, too hard for my crew guys to take time off work. So, you know, we got so many things up here. We do. I talked to Charlie Vest from Atomic now. We're going to work there a little bit. We've worked Atomic a lot from way back in the Dave Kirshner days when they were promoters over there. And then what was the last guy's name that was there?
Brad.
Brad,
McCallum.
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we did a lot of work with Brad and had a really good relationship with him. And
Now, I just seen their announcer, Mike Goins. You know, Mike's leaving Atomic.
no.
Yeah, he's going to be the Saturday night announcer at Shady Bowl. He said Shady Bowl, Shady
Well,
Bowl.
that's a night and day difference.
Night and day difference, and asphalt. He said that's where he grew up, and that's his home track, and that's where he was originally from, and had family that raced there and stuff. And
Now he's still doing Moeller on Friday?
he's still gonna do Moeller on Friday. Yeah.
Huh.
So I'm like, to tell me he's not leaving Moeller. I mean,
Wow.
there are other options, but
Absolutely.
But
But you get so used
Yes,
to people.
I
It's just
enjoy
like
working
we're
with
so
Mike.
used to Chad now.
Yes,
and
yes.
Me and Chad, we just have a great relationship. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, especially during the Merrill Downey, we're just always teasing and cutting up, and just like him texting me last night about this tonight.
Yeah.
You know, it's we have a good time. It's a lot of fun.
So my, I'll say my transition or the phone call, the first initial phone call for me to come to Lawrenceburg was Chad. Hey, by the way, here's our scenario. Is this something you'd be interested in? I'm like, whoa, wow. You know, first off, I'm flattered. You know, but I mean, I can't even entertain the thought until I have a conversation with Josh. You know,
Right.
and that conversation went pretty good. You know,
Right.
and stuff. It's like, well. Okay, and then I thought about it. It's like, okay, let's talk about it. You know, I'll entertain the idea. Let's talk. So
Right.
then I think it was the next night after I talked with Josh. Then I was like, okay. Then Rudy called me the next night and said, well, let's start talking. You know, and that was probably a 45-minute conversation. You know, and
Yeah.
I feel like we really hit and covered a lot, and seemed like we were a lot on the same page and stuff.
Yeah.
So
Well, I know when me and you talked the first time on the phone about you coming here, you know, I felt really good. I felt there were only really 2 people that would fit the job here, and one, of course, is a dear friend of mine, Tom Wilson. Used to be a flagman here and flagged for the United States Auto Club. And just a couple years ago, he had went to work with Tony Stewart
Right.
with his TQ midget group. And, you know, he's very happy with Tony. Of course, who wouldn't be happy
Sure.
working for Tony? He's competition director there. And, you know, always in the back of our mind, we'd always knew if Terry had ever decided to move on like he
Right.
did. He didn't decide to move on, just backing off.
Sure.
And that Tom would
he's
have been
not
a
going
perfect fit.
anywhere. He's
He's not going anywhere. He's
stepping
just
out of the
taking a
seat.
break. Yeah, his wife's still going to be there, so he'll be around. But you know, him and you were the only two people that really came to anybody's mind. And when we first talked, I really felt that you would be perfect for the job, but I just felt that maybe your late model roots were going to be a little too tough.
Yeah.
And for Josh to tell you, hey, this is something you need to do. It's a step up for you. And I mean, I think a lot of Josh, you know, again, talk about those promoters, have a good relationship with. I do him. Unfortunately, we just don't get a chance to be there very often because, you know, if it's a night that we're not running, we're normally at another sprint car race.
I hope he takes this as a complete compliment because, you know, I feel like, you know, I have learned from, you know, I've only been race director for a couple of years at Moeller. But, you know, I've learned from watching Josh, Rick Schwally with Lucas Oil Series, and, you know, I learned a lot from Josh's dad, Jerry. Jerry wasn't necessarily the race director. They didn't really have that type of position at that time. But, you know, just seeing how these guys operate, you know, and when we go to Eldora, how Earl Baltus, you know, handled and how he, you know, so it was just kind of always in my mind, man, if I was ever, for whatever reason, if I was ever in charge of anything, man, I really kind of learned from what I feel like is some of the best guys that there is to learn from.
Yeah.
So when I was first I was a general manager and race director at Moeller, and then once it sold, then obviously didn't need a general manager anymore, but they still need a race director. So that they kept me on as a race director. But the Pickelheimers, you know, they're doing a fantastic job. You know, they have a lot of heart they're putting into the place, and, you know, nothing but improvements, and everything they do is they want to make the place better, you know, and I'm all for it. You know,
and promoting is lots of times a thankless job. I mean, people can't wait to get on their phones and tear up a promoter for that go wrong, but they very rarely want to get on there and give them props for when something goes right. And promoting is a very, very, very difficult thing to do. And everybody thinks promoters are all rich. Believe me, that's not the case.
So Tim, the flagman, Tim Montgomery. When I from what Chad told me, he says, hey, when Terry had talked about stepping down, that, you know, basically Tim was kind of one of the first ones that stepped up. Tim had come out to Moeller and flagged for us out there and stuff, and it's like, hey, Tim, this is simple. As long as me and you can communicate, this works real easy and stuff like that. And I guess I impressed him enough, and, you know, he, from what Chad said, he stepped up, and as soon as Tim said, or Terry said he was stepping out, and Tim was like, hey, this is the guy we need to talk to, you know. So I took that as a real compliment, you know.
Yeah, I remember when Tim first started, and, you know, I had been used to the Wilsons flagging, Tom and then his son David, and you know, again, we had that rapport, knew how things worked and everything. And Tim had been there for a couple years, and, you know, just like anything else, you know, it took growing pains, took a little while. And sometimes, like if we had a street stock race, you know, and it was a heat race and maybe there were 6 cars in it, and the tail car would spin, you know, Tim would immediately throw the yellow, not give him just that, you know, you can treat things a lot different at Lawrenceburg than you can maybe, you know, at Moeller or someplace else, you know, a little bit bigger. You give him a little bit, just that split second to, you know, get going so you didn't have to throw the yellow. And so, you know, Tim would get it out there, which nothing was wrong with that, you know, at all. Not at all. I love Tim, great friends. You know, we'd normally always hook up in Florida because he's down there with a good friend of mine, Pete Abel, that used to drive. They're all down there now. We'd always hook up and have a great time. But, you know, he'd get that yellow out a little bit of time, and we'd think, oh, man, if you waited just a split second more.
We could have stayed green.
I remember, you know, we had this one night, and the guy did that, and he kept going, and I get on my radio, and I go, good, no yellow, Tim, and he throws the yellow, and I'm thinking.
He heard the yellow.
He heard the word yellow. Don't say yellow on the radio if you're not wanting it. Right. So we cracked up about that because Rudy said, we finally get him. He didn't throw it, and you got to say it, and he throws it. So I don't speak on the radio very often, you know, like that if I don't have to. But funny stories, and, you know, like I said, we just have a good time. Our radio chatter is very minimal and very professional. Rudy insists profession.
Whenever Tom Wilson, he comes over to Florence on occasion, and it's not very often he gets the opportunity. He's been there a few times. And
Him and Jerry were buddies.
They were
Yeah.
when Marilyn and Jerry had the lease at Lawrenceburg back in what was it, the 80s, late 80s ish?
Late 80s, I do believe. It was before the Mel Johnson era.
Yep.
So, I think late 80s.
Tom remembers me and Josh running around as kids because that's what we did, because we weren't workers yet by any means at that point.
Yeah.
So Tom remembered us as kids running around the place. So now Tom is, he'd been to Moeller once, I think, and anytime he comes to Florence, he always come over to me and see me working there, and we'd always talk, and he'd tell me about him working for Tony now and the TQs and stuff. I'm like, man, and he's telling me about some of those stories. I'm like, man, that's awesome. So there may be an opportunity I may need to reach out to Tom and have Tom sitting here at the table and get some stories.
He can give you plenty of stories.
Yeah,
there ain't no doubt about that.
I like Tom. I think, it'd be good to,
Yeah.
So.
Well, we talk. If we don't talk every day, it's at least every other day about anything from the Reds, to racing, to NASCAR, Outlaws, and now it's Bengals talk. That's all we can talk about now is Who Day,
Well, now we got something else. You can have Tom check out the podcast or the video podcast. You can go to YouTube and check that out. So
absolutely, I'm sure he will. He knew all about it too.
We've got some names dropped tonight.
We have
Tom, Tony Stewart may check this out at some point. Maybe Bubba the Love Sponge could check this out, and we'll get this thing going up and running. How about that?
Absolutely. Hey, if you get Tony to like it, there ain't no telling where you'll go. You might be working for him. One of our the kid's name was Ryan. His last name I kind of forget. He used to do some co-announcing with Chad at Lawrenceburg, and he had announced for Boss. Went with Aaron Fry and worked for Boss, and he got hooked up with Tony.
Really?
He did a big, huge interview thing with Donnie Schatz. Went to Donnie's house, and it sounds like he's hooked up on the right track, with Tony.
So speaking of side announcing, I didn't do it on purpose, but I think I may have taken Chad's backup or slot as the backup announcer at Moeller. There was a situation last year where Mike couldn't be there, and I guess Larry had called Carl from Florence, Carl Cruzy. Carl wasn't able to do it.
Another former Lawrenceburg announcer.
Yeah, now he's the announcer at Florence.
Yeah.
He wasn't able to do it. Chad had maybe a football game or something, so he wasn't able to do it. So Larry's like, how do you feel about announcing? I'm like, okay, it's one thing I haven't done yet. Sure, why not?
So who did the competition directing that night? You didn't do both of them.
I didn't do both.
You're good, but I don't think you're that good.
No, his son Alex.
Really?
Yeah, Alex did it.
I did not know that.
So Alex is the fill-in for me as race director. So if I can't or whatever, then Alex. And there may be times where, hey, I need to stretch my legs or something, then Alex will step in for me and whatever, and then I'll come back. So Alex did the race directing that night, and I did the announcing. And he's like, cool. He says, now we have an in-house backup announcer. So if Mike can't ever be here, he says, you're the guy. And I'm like,
that's great.
Okay.
That's very unusual for my dog to be doing that.
Hi, girl. How are you?
That is absolutely amazing because she is so skittish.
She's a pretty girl.
She is. She is my baby. That is great. Yeah, as far as I can speak from all the Lawrenceburg employees, we're very happy to have you there. I think it's going to be a fun year.
Yeah. I'm excited. Something different,
And sprint car things are a little different. I know this is the way I view it, and I don't know that it's correct, but I see more. I think more sprint car people that attend Lawrenceburg, I'm just going to say, tend to go to Florence more than people that attend to Florence come to Lawrenceburg. I've never seen, like when we've ran the Merrill Downey and we've ran late models with the Merrill Downey, we've never been supported fantastic from Florence as far as car-wise. Now, this year we probably had our best car count in late models in years. I think we were 25, 24, and we had been down to like 9 and 10 in years. And I don't think I don't know. I just don't think we've seen the fans from Florence come to Lawrenceburg as much. I don't know why.
Here's the funny thing, and I don't know why, but I know Florence's schedule has changed a lot, and late models are not going to be on every week.
Right.
You know, and then as soon as word started getting out that I was going to Lawrenceburg, man, my phone had blowed up. I mean, there for probably the first couple of months, I was probably getting 2 or 3 calls a week, different late model guys. Hey, so, you know, Florence is not going to be running us every week, or we going to start seeing more races at Lawrenceburg. And I'm like, man, I have no idea. That's not
That's beyond your
that's
realm.
not
of,
my pay grade,
yeah,
bro. You know, I mean, yeah, I wouldn't mind seeing them, but I mean, they have their thing, and you know, that's Rudy's job, and I got nothing to do with that. I mean, I'll give him my opinion on stuff if he asks. I'm more than happy to, you know, tell
boy,
him
that
what
would be
think.
a card. I mean, sprints, late models. I mean, that would be a throwback deal.
Yeah.
You know, because that's what it always
explained
used to be years ago.
And he explained, you know, with the payout and stuff, that's
hard
tough
to
to
do.
do. Yeah, and I totally get that. But I mean, I've had a lot of guys show interest. Like, man, I would be there every night. You know, I'm like, well, hey, I'll pass on the info. You know, that's
Right.
all I can do. But
well, I think it would be a cool event to try. You know, the old days.
Mm-hmm.
You know, when we used to run sprint and late models were on the card. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, you know, back in the day, Piers Foster, Danny Rink. Oh my gosh.
Vern Lefevre.
Vern Lefevre, Bubby Jones, you know, a lot of
Pat
those
Patrick.
guys. Yeah. You know,
We mentioned that
boy,
name a lot.
I got to really dig back in my memory bank here.
Yeah.
There was a local guy, Donnie Henry, that used to run way back then too. But you know, that was the regular Saturday night program back then with sprints and late models.
Yep.
And for a number of years back when I started, promoter Eddie Bennett, and it even progressed up with Carol Hamilton, Volkswagens. Do you remember those?
Really?
Yeah, a guy
Yeah, I
named,
remember the cars, but I never remember seeing them race.
Bill Bushley. He drove a red 77, and Tom Hansen in an orange #1 Shelby. There. Don't knock down the Lawrenceburg one. But yeah, boy, I mean, we could sit here and talk about memories forever and stories. You know,
I remember the days like talking about the Oldberg, like after the races when all the haulers and stuff would pull out on the racetrack, and guys would go get their pay or just hang out and talk, and then
we wouldn't leave till 2, 3,
then
4
they would
o'clock in the morning.
trickle off. Yeah.
And that was when I brought back the thing at Hobstadt on that Harvest Classic in October there. That's the way that was. I don't think there was a hauler hardly that left. Now, the only reason some of the guys left, I think Justin Grant was there and Timez and some of those guys, they left because there was a USAC Silver Crown show at Toledo the next day. So they had to go from Hobstadt. And believe me, I don't even know why Hobstadt is even listed as being in Indiana, because it is so far away from here. Holy cow. I mean, it's like 3 hours.
Really?
It's close. Well, of course, it is way closer to Illinois. I mean, it's real close to Illinois, 20 miles out of Illinois.
Right.
But it just takes forever to get to Hobstadt. But if any of you ever have an opportunity to go to Hobstadt and you haven't been there, go. You will not be disappointed. There no dust whatsoever at all.
Really?
He puts wood chips in his track, like a mulch. He was trying to explain the science to this to me, and I said, "You're wasting your time. I have no idea what you're talking about."
Yeah. I mean,
but
that's
being a
interesting,
farmer,
but
you know, he matures this wood chips to a certain moisture content. Because the reason I ask is because there was wood chips all over the infield, and I'm like, "What in the world is this all about?" And there was just a very, very light hint of dust at the end of the event, and we're talking, you know, MSCS running a full card, heats and everything like that, and the mini sprints, the winged mini sprints, and
I've heard of a lot of stuff being put on racetracks,
USAC midgets,
but I've never heard of wood chips.
and the little bit of very light dust. He said that was dust off of the wood. It wasn't dust from the dirt. It was actually off of the wood. Yeah, Knoxville puts on manure.
Yeah, I've heard of manure. I've heard of soap. I've heard of a lot of different stuff.
But there is nobody who works a track like Tommy Heffridge.
Right.
I mean, he has tons of equipment. He's a big farmer, huge John Deere tractors.
Man,
and
that stuff helps too.
And disc it up, and throw it on a little water, wheel pack it in, and in 15 minutes, it's back to a brand new racetrack. He knows how to do track prep.
Interesting.
Major.
Well, maybe I'll get to check that place out here sometime in the near
Who
future.
knows? You might land in the back of the seat of the truck for in October. But
sounds
don't
good.
prepare to get back to the hotel and get to bed really early because it's not going to happen down there.
I'll have me a special cooler pack
Yeah.
just for it.
So where's your favorite? What's your favorite track?